Okay, folks, something really interesting happened in the last day regarding our shul Sukkah. Somebody called up and said, hey, the Sukkah we saw yesterday, you were putting up on Sunday, the ground staff of the young Israel was putting up the Sukkah, and they put up the schach first and the wall second. Is that a problem? So let's just take a step backwards. Let's talk about, first of all, the ground staff, non-Jewish people putting up a Sukkah. Is that a concern? Is that an issue at all? Reminds me of a story Rav Hershel Schechter told about his father, Rav Elimelech Schechter, who got a call from a cantor in a conservative shul. And this cantor was an old-time cantor who was traditional in his own way, and he was upset about the new rabbi. The new rabbi was a young rabbi who he felt was not doing the traditional thing. So he calls up Rabbi Elimelech Schechter, and he says to him, it's not right. This new rabbi, he allowed the non-Jews to put up the sukkah. So the Rav Schechter said to him, well, tell me a little bit more. Where did they put the sukkah? So he said, well, they were putting up the sukkah on the bima the day after Yom Kippur, and I saw them that it was non-Jews who were doing it. So he said, wait a second, you put the sukkah on the bima? You mean it's inside? He said, yes, it's inside, but he was using non-Jews to put it up. So Rav Elimelech Schechter said, yeah, the truth is a sukkah made by non-Jews is not a problem. Sukkah inside, huge problem. So let's just go back to that. We paskin in halacha that you don't need a sukkah l'shem mitzvah sukkah. It does not even be made for the sake of a sukkah. It needs to be made l'shem tzeil. It needs to be there as providing shade. That's what the main point of the mitzvah is. It's sufficient, and that's why the Gemara says sukkah's ganvach is sufficient. What's ganvach? Ganvach is an acronym. The first letter, the gimel, is goyim. A sukkah put up by a non-Jew is fine. There are those, and that's how the Shulchan Aruch paskins. A sukkah's ganvach is fine. No problem if the non-Jew puts it up. There are some who say that perhaps it's a better idea to have a pursa, a little bit of the sukkah, which is put up by a Jew, and that is for a number of reasons. One reason it could be is because when the non-Jews are putting it up, they're not putting it up l'shem tzeil. Maybe they're just putting it up because they've been asked to put up the structure, not because they're going to use the shade in it. But nonetheless, that is what the that is what we paskin. So therefore, in our sukkah, in our shul sukkah, every year the ground staff leave over a section in the roof, which is not done, and the days of Rabbi Talabam, and I'll continue that tradition to unroll that section. The question becomes, what about putting up the walls first? That is a problem. The Shulchan Aruch says the roof first. The Shulchan Aruch says in Siman Taf Reish Lamed Hey, at the very end, the Ramah quotes and says there's a process what's called Taseh v'lo min ha'asri. You're not allowed to make a sukkah in a way that when it's formed automatically. It's all suddenly comes into being at one time. And that is a problem. If you put up the roof first, the schach first, and then the walls, the time you're putting up the roof, the schach, it's not really a sukkah yet. And then when you put up the walls and it becomes a sukkah, it snaps into being in that moment. It wasn't put up l'shem sukkah at that point in time. That's a real issue. Although there are many, like the Aruch HaShulchan, who says, but yeah, that's not a problem. We don't want to live in a b'diavad existence. We found out about this before Yom Tov, so it's still the opportunity to be l'chadchela. So our question is, what should we do? How do we fix the situation where the roof was put up first? And this is very common. People put up roofs first because it's easier to reach the roof without the walls in the middle. That's a problem in halacha. So the real issue is that our sukkah is a huge sukkah, as you can see. Baruch Hashem, we have a major and beautiful shul sukkah. And the issue is that the sukkah, the schach, is tied down on all sides of the edges, and there are at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 8 different rolls with 3 different rolls in each section. So we're talking about a major amount of schach. And so in this case, it's not enough to do what's called a pursa, just a little part of the sukkah, like when you're helping with a sukkah's ganvach made by non-Jews, you'd have to actually invalidate the sukkah. The question is, how do you invalidate the sukkah? This would require a huge amount of effort to unroll the entire schach, which is actually attached and is connected, and in such a way to be able to do this. So try to figure out another way to work this out. And then we realize that there's a very simple solution. And that is that we don't need to take all the schach off. We need to take off enough schach to invalidate the sukkah. What would that mean? So we decided that what we'd do is we'd remove 2 strips of schach. We'd roll back the schach the entire length on the one end over here, taking this wall out of the equation, and then we'd take the schach off from the other end, unrolling it just over here, more than 3 tvachim, so we have this wall disconnected. We're going to undo an entire area across the entire side, so that the entire side is going to not be touching the wall for 3 tvachim, which is therefore disconnected from this wall. There you go. There's Rabbi Schreier taking in this area over here. Perfect. So here we go. So as we see, so we just invalidated this entire area here. This area is more than 3 tvachim from the wall. And then if we go on this side over here, on this end, you'll see that we also moved the schach back from the wall on this side 3 tvachim, which means that it's invalidated, which means there's one wall in the sukkah on the far end, and there's one wall of the sukkah on this end next to Rabbi Schreier, and that's 2 walls for a sukkah. That is possible, so that is a possible sukkah. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move the schach back, therefore making the schach after we put the wall. What we do is we're putting back this row, so we're setting it up that we can bring back the schach l'shem it's a sukkah, which we only really need actually to be for the sake of shade, but now we're doing it and it's done in a way that the walls are already in place and we're now placing the schach afterwards. This is the correct way of doing a sukkah, and we're fixing the shul sukkah as such. And here we have it. Our sukkah is back. Our sukkah is kosher. The schach has been put on. Now, after the walls, our sukkah is ready to go. We look forward to seeing you at the shul kiddush tomorrow. And hopefully this has been an educational piece of information when making our own sukkahs and appreciating the significance and the details that go into making a kosher sukkah.